What's up to all of my great creative entrepreneurs? I hope you guys have had a great week so far heading on into this weekend. If you are in e-commerce and you have a product, let's say apparel, and you are struggling with how you're going to fund or fulfill your orders because you're not getting enough people who are willing to pre-order your product, and you are stuck because you feel you may have to launch later than expected due to the lack of capital necessary to fulfill orders upfront. If you're confused about how you should approach this because it's not working out the way you thought based on what you heard, you've come to the right video. And what I mean is, if you've heard about pre-orders, I want to use that language clearly because a lot of people may struggle with the idea of getting pre-orders on a product that they worked out logistically absolutely can fulfill, but they simply don't have any proof of concept on yet. I'm going to give you a few pointers here that I figured out personally for myself. Now, the pre-order system absolutely does work, and I kind of want you to think about this in a different way. Mostly every online physical product is a situation where you can call it a pre-order, right? Where someone has to pay for the goods before they receive it. That's pretty much how most everything works anyway. The reason why you're calling it pre-order is because you're looking to have the situation be a supply and demand situation. And you're thinking about this the right way because it's absolutely wiser to do that. Because a lot of times you see a lot of brands that's been around and they have tons of inventory. And the mistake that you can make is comparing yourself to them, right? Like scripture says in 2 Corinthians 10:12, it's not wise to compare yourselves to others. So that being said, what you may not realize is that this company or the brand that you see that has tons and tons of inventory, the reason why they may have that is because they have years of reconnaissance. They have years of data that they glean from the marketplace. So they absolutely, most of the times, if they're wise and successful, they are operating from the standpoint of demand and supply, which is exactly what you want to do. You definitely don't want to do supply and demand. That was something that we was taught, just like the erroneous idea that time is money, right? These are both lies. Now, you definitely want to have demand and then supply, because I may have even said that wrong going in the top of this. So forgive me if I did. Demand and supply is the model that you want. You want to have the demand first and then supply that demand. The reason why you see people have the supply and then the demand is because at first, and that's what I really meant to say, they had the demand and then they supplied that demand because they had the data, right? They understood particular way people's buying habits were trending over time. And so they have a lot of feedback. They have a large sample over time what their particular demographic enjoys about their products. In other words, what is their core product offering, right? And so they understand exactly what that is so they can supply it ahead of that demand now. And so they have a lot of inventory, but you may not have that. And you heard that you could pre-order. You've heard other people have, they was very transparent. They let someone see the silhouette that they're dropping, and they let people know that they only can take on a certain amount of people to fulfill the pre-order, and it adds scarcity for the drop. And then a lot of people get in so they can be the first movers, right? The early adopters. That absolutely can work, guys. I'm going to give you the secret sauce to how you can get that to work. Put skin in the game, right? Now, I am only going to assume that you've done your due diligence and you've gotten feedback from the market first, and you tested and made sure that it's already a demand what it is that you have. In other words, you've introduced a bunch of silhouettes, colorways and everything, messaging, and a bunch of people, a large sample of people gave you feedback that they would absolutely buy that at the price point that you're looking to sell it. If you haven't gotten feedback of people that would do it, don't do it. Don't do it. Only fulfill, develop, invest, process the item when people give you direct feedback saying, I love this, I will absolutely buy this. When can I get it? How soon are you going to have it? That's the demand, right? And then you are going to supply that demand by the pre-order communication. And that pre-order system will allow your audience's demand to fund the operation. That is going to be financially the best way that you can move to do that. But here's a way that will reduce friction in the beginning if you don't have any proof of concept other than that initial demand, right? Because sometimes you hear the people telling you that they will buy it, right? But maybe they may not take the action right away, right? They're just simply giving you the advice because you asked for the advice, right? And they gave you the advice. Some people really, say, when can I have it, right? And let's just say it's a minimum order quantity on T-shirts, a particular T-shirt, and you need 50. But you've gotten 20 people to say that they could buy it. So you haven't gotten in all 50 orders to fulfill it yet. And so the remaining people, you are looking to get them to pull the trigger on the pre-order. Well, what if you have a problem and all you have on your website is mock-ups and, let's just say AI generated models wearing the T-shirts, right? Modeling your T-shirts. So you don't have any real world examples. Well, that's a mistake. Skin in the game is always going to actually help you. So literally get the first minimum order quantity done. When you do that, you can have real world images of the garment and people wearing the garment so they can really see themselves. That's going to get you over that hump. And that's what I figured out, guys. I just put skin in the game because I felt like, okay, if I don't invest, then how are people going to want to invest? Now, some people have absolutely had a sample of the garment and an AI mock-up of the garment. Let people know that they're going to drop it. People were really digging it, and they immediately did it because they've already established some level of trust, right? So that's a different situation, but you may not have already developed that trust. But by putting skin in the game, and let's just say you put skin in the game, you could literally give those away as loss leaders, right? In other words, you take a financial loss in terms of profit, but you gain the visual social proof that you need. And it doesn't have to be a total loss. I'm going to show you another way that you can do this. And I'm assuming that you have Shopify or a platform like that, because you never want to start in a situation where the platform you're leveraging has too much leverage. In other words, you don't want to be having a product on TikTok, right? In your TikTok seller center that you only have set up for the TikTok influencers to promote for a commission. You don't want to be in a situation like that, because the money that you earn that way, TikTok is not going to release until the item is fulfilled, right? Or you don't want to do it through an Amazon Seller Central account yet. Now, both of these platforms are good, but you don't want to do it yet because, as you know, even though you can get a decent margin based on your pricing strategy on Amazon, Amazon is not going to give you any of the information, right? Same as with well, I can't speak for TikTok Seller Center. I can't, because I just got verified for that. I haven't made any sales on that, so I can't speak to that. But I can speak to the Amazon. Amazon, as you know, will not give you any of that data in terms of emails, numbers, addresses, and things of that nature. So you don't have a lot of leverage there, right? And other than you owning the intellectual property, you owning the trademark for that, and I spoke about that in another video. So you do have leverage, right? Your intellectual property is protected, but in terms of the data, the juice, the information, the email list, you don't have access to that. That's why I always say have a site like Shopify. Now, I'm not saying Shopify is the only game in town, but Shopify is a really, really good way to start. It really is. Now, I may go into another video of you building your own Shopify-like platform that you have more autonomy on in terms of your website and things of that nature. But that'll be in another video. But what I'm saying is Shopify is a really great place to start, because you can have all of that data and insight. And then once you get all of that data and insight, you have all of the metrics, which you can actually glean and figure out the trending patterns of your avatar, the person, the ideal customer that you are serving in the marketplace. Then you can better set up those listings for TikTok and Amazon under your same brand with the same listings. Anyway, okay, what I mean by the loss leader strategy, right? You get skin in the game, so you do the first minimum order quantity. And the reason why I say that, for a reason, you always want to do screen printing, guys. Now, I'm not saying screen printing is the only way to go. You can do some sort of stitching or something like that, but that's the level of print you want to start with. Now, they may have had some improved printing processes that you can get with at a no minimum, right? Print, right? Or print on demand is what they would call it. But as of right now, as I'm recording this video, direct to garment is not sustainable. Direct to film is not sustainable in terms of printing styles. Why do I say that? Even though the quality looks beautifully when printed, it doesn't have a long shelf life in terms of the imagery, right? Whether it be text or image, whether it be plain white or color. It will peel and fade more quickly over time. There's just simply not, they don't have that sustainable shelf life. But screen printing is very, very durable. That's why I say start with a minimum order quantity. Now, there are ways, guys, that you can actually put in print orders. It may not be in your city, where there are some print companies that will take a small minimum order quantity, and that will help you to easily get started, guys, right? And I'll just use the company that we use, Baltimore, the Baltimore T-shirt company. Okay, if you're in the U.S., I don't really have all the specifics in terms of if they're dealing with orders from out of the country. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure they do that as well. But I can speak definitely to the U.S. guys, right? Because the turnaround times are going to be a lot shorter. You can deal with them. They do a minimum of 12, right? They're not the only game in town, but they're one of the lowest minimums, right? I had another company, but I'm not going to mention their name because they're not as logistically sound as the Baltimore T-shirt company is, and they try to hit you over the head with pricing because they don't have enough inventory in terms of their sourcing, right? So the turnaround times are a lot slower, and they don't really have a good history of screen printing, I feel, in terms of fulfillment. That's the way I look at it, because that's that company was hitting me with all types of weird pricing that it seems like it was only unique to me, and it didn't make sense. Anyway, Baltimore T-shirt Company is an example. You may find a local screen printer in your city, in your state, that does a very small minimum, right? Now, some other companies, right, like Threadbird, they do a 50-piece minimum, right, which is still affordable. Right? Worst case scenario, you're spending $2,000 for a 50 minimum order. Screen printing, right, for your first inventory. Okay, I say that to say this: skin in the game is going to help, and you don't have to worry about profiting. Just make sure that the people absolutely love it. You already have tested the samples of this fit in terms of the garment, the blanket itself, how it would fit, how it would drape. So you understand how a person would have, as a particular size, based on how they want to wear it, how they have to size up or size down. So you're going to have your sizing charts and all of that, right? That is going to give you the imagery. Now, like I say, it's not a total loss, because using the review trifecta, and what is that? You can use your verified Trustpilot account to collect reviews. You can use an app called Judge Me, and you're definitely going to want to use that if you have the Shopify platform, and it's in the Shopify App Store. Why do I say that? Because if you have apparel, you're going to want Google product reviews for that listing that you have, right? That SKU, that garment, that GTIN, right? For that particular garment, you're going to want to have product reviews. And the reason why is it gives you more social proof, which makes people more prone to do an impulse buy on it if they really like it, the aesthetics of it, the colorway, right? The fit of the silhouette. And in order for you to be able to do that, you have to have a Google Merchant Center account. Okay. And then you would use the app Judge Me to collect the verified reviews. And what I mean by that is a customer comes to your site, they pay for the shirt, an automatic email is sent out or text requesting that they actually leave an honest review after the shirt has been fulfilled. So it's usually triggered once the item has been fulfilled. The review is then triggered and sent to them, and you can absolutely, in the messaging, let them know when it's on its way, right? And when they can receive tracking for the item, you can let them know, hey, when you get it, if you really love it, please, if you would, leave us an honest review. It really will help us to get out there and reach more awesome people like you, right? That's the type of message in the thank you page you would actually send them. And then you follow that up with the reminder email once the item has been fulfilled and they received it and they had time to sit with it, right? So anyway, in order for you to be able to do that, you're going to have to have that set up. And you can set that up in the app in terms of the timing and all of that stuff. But in order for you to have those reviews translated into Google product reviews for Google Shopping, or just simply for your item showing up in Google with reviews, you need to have your Merchant Center account set up through Google, your Google Merchant Center account. And you have to have an aggregate total of 50 reviews, right, on that particular product. Now, if you have several products, you're going to have at least 3 reviews minimum for each listing on there. So I don't know how many GTNs you may have for your store. Maybe you start off with a single item. Okay, that's good. You're going to need an aggregate of 50 reviews for that one particular item. If you have 3 items, you're going to need an aggregate of 50 for between all 3, but all 3 must have a minimum of 3 reviews each for them to be accepted in Google, and then you can, they'll display those aggregated product reviews on Google, and then you can continue to push those in as you gain more. So I just wanted to say that. But let's just say you say, man, I really would like to have reviews and before the 50, right? So I can get the social proof and trigger more sales. Okay, that's why I call it a review trifecta. What do I mean by that? You also will start a Google business profile. When you start a Google business profile and Google Maps profile locally, you will be able to collect reviews for your business and your product immediately, guys. So you don't have to do any aggregation of reviews. You can straight out immediately as soon as someone is fulfilled in your city locally. Now, that's the key. You have to have a situation where people can buy from you direct, or you're offering pickup directly for them, right? And this is where the Shopify POS system comes in, or the POS app, right? Whereas though they can personally buy from you, and they can actually, you can scan their card that has a card reader. They can tap and pay right on your device. You can do it with your phone, right? And it will record that sale locally. And you can either have it on hand, whereas though you can be a street vendor, or you can be a mobile vendor, or you can simply allow them to pick it up from a destination. That could be your home-based business or your storefront, or you can personally deliver it to them, or you can ship it to them, right? But it has to be a feature to where as though that you're dealing with someone in person in order for you to have that. But it will allow for you to start pulling in reviews to actually that you can then use a widget to actually push through your page. So when someone visits your Shopify product page or your home page, they'll see the reviews for your product or your business. Another one is, like I said, the verified Trustpilot reviews. You definitely want to have a verified Trustpilot account. They do have a synchronization to where as though you can actually integrate it with the Shopify. They have that official Trustpilot app in that store, in the Shopify app store. You want to do that. Now, I'm going to give you heads up though. In order for you to have that widget to where as though your Trustpilot reviews show up, it's a substantial amount of money that you pay, and you might not want to jump ahead to that until you're absolutely profitable. But you still can record it. You can save the screenshots, and you can start putting up those screenshots along with testimonials linked to the customer that bought something. You can have their Trustpilot review as a screenshot on a testimonial slideshow, right? That gives your page, your business, your brand, that product more social proof. Okay, so now you have that all out of the way. Once you do your loss leaders and you get your first reviews in, now you can start doing the pre-order promotion. Because as I said, most brands are pre-order anyway. Apple does pre-orders with their phones. So you're not the only game in town doing it. Don't feel like it doesn't work. This is already a proven concept. Most things are pre-order. Like if you order some food online, a pizza online, it's a pre-order. The pizza is not already sitting there in a warmer. They have to make it fresh. So people are already psychologically trained. So you don't have to use the pre-order language per se, but it is good to be transparent. You don't necessarily have to use it, but what you can do is be honest about the turnaround time, the processing time, or how long it will take. So I hope that strategy helps, guys. But I'm telling you, here's another strategy I'm going to give you before I finish the video. Let's just say you want to trigger a lot of pre-orders. You can do a special discount code locally, guys. I'm not saying online, nationally, or internationally yet, because I don't want you to lose a ton of money on this. But it's really not a loss. The loss leader pre-order strategy is you can bring it down to base costs and let them fulfill the processing of the order. In other words, they're going to pay for the blanks, which I'm going to get to that. And then I've talked about this in another video. And also they're going to pay for the screen printing as well. They're going to fulfill all of that, but at base cost. So in other words, the base cost for you for processing that item to fulfill before you mark it up for your retail price, that's exactly what they're going to pay. So basically, it's going to be almost next to nothing. Let's just say it costs you $5 to source a particular shirt, $5 to print that shirt. So you're only going to charge them $10, right? But let's just say it's also a setup fee, a screen setup fee. Basically, you can pay to have a screen created. And then once it's created, usually most companies will charge it a simple resetup fee for that same screen, which is a lot less. But you can factor that in. Let's just say you charge them $15 for the shirt with a coupon code, right? You can do that, right, for everybody. Oh, and I forgot to mention the first minimum order quantity, the loss leader, where you're getting no profit and you're actually investing in that, the fulfillment and processing for that. Literally, you can still give them a special coupon code that brings everything down to zero, right? And you're going to do it locally. There's a feature on your Shopify store that you can say they're getting it for local pickup. That way, it will negate the shipping. So the shipping cost is not added into it, right? And we're going to talk about how you can do shipping and pricing in another video. But for the first one, the first loss leader, for the local loss leader, for your visual social proof and first reviews, you're going to put skin in the game and you're going to take a total loss on that. You're going to pay for everything yourself to be processed, and you're going to fulfill it yourself, and you're going to give them a zero price. But they're still going to put in, as if they're purchasing it, they're just going to use your special code that you calculated for it to come to zero. That way, the system can still verify their phone number and email when they leave the review, and then it will show up as a verified Judge Me review. Okay, so now you got that. Please rewind this as many times as you need for you to remember that part, because that is key. Okay, now for the second level, when you're into pre-order phase, when you do the drop, right, nationally, internationally, however you're doing your drop, when you do the official drop and you're taking in the pre-orders now at this particular point, everything should run smoothly, right? Everything should run smoothly because, like I said, you're doing two waves locally. And I should have been more clear about that. The first wave, skin in the game. Second wave, you're getting a bunch of people to get it for next to nothing. They're only paying for the base cost. Next to nothing. That way you should be able to get your 50 reviews a lot faster, right? Because I'm not saying now, maybe it is a 50 minimum order. You do want to do those with the skin in the game loss leader, total loss leader, right? But or you want to have a you want to have them, the customer funded, right? Which is basically what the pre-order is. You want to have them funded, right? Which I just experienced, and it's amazing, by the way. But the only reason why I was able to do that is because I had skin in the game. I gave away 3 free loss leader samples, and it triggered that person to trust me, and they put in an order, right, and pay for it in advance. But I gave them a special deal, and they paid for all of the processing for me to fulfill them. So basically, I had like minimum money that I had to pay for like the screen setup, right? And they even paid $2 into that. So the screen setup for me is always $20, right? Because I'm having them set up the same screen for the the slogan that I was screen printing that had already been I paid for the initial setup, right? Anyway. So I only spent like $18 on an order of 35 shirts. I only spent $18 out of my pocket, right? But it's a loss leader because I didn't get any profit, but I gave them a special deal because this person is influential, and their cosign is going to really give me a lot of leverage and momentum for the niche that I'm in, right? But I just wanted to kind of show you what that looks like, those two levels. When you do those two loss leader strategies locally, it's going to give you a lot of momentum. Because the first wave, you do the cost, getting your skin in the game. And then from then on, you kind of give them a really sweet deal, whereas though you only give them a price of what your base cost would be with your special coupon. And then they pay you for that. And then you fulfill that honestly, because you definitely want to do that, guys. Do not take their money up front and spend it on something other than what you promised them. Use that money honestly, have some integrity, and fulfill that. Because when you do that, it's going to make them more obliged to leave you the review. And it's going to also give you more visual social proof as well, and give you a lot of leverage. So when you do the official drop for the national drop online for people that are not in your local town, they're going to trust you because they're going to see all of these people wearing it, all of these reviews, and then they're going to trust you with the pre-order. So essentially, your customers will be funding all of your orders, and you won't have any dead inventory. They'll simply put in the size of the silhouette that they want, and you won't have any inventory laying around. It'll be totally funded. You get what I'm saying? That you have no dead inventory. And the only reason why, like I said, as your business ages and you're in that 2-year mark and you have a history of the most favorite sizes, the most favorite variants, that the best-selling variants, then you can start getting a bunch of stuff for when you're doing your pop-ups, or if you are going to open a store physically. Now you have the data to open a store, because you don't want to have a bunch of dead products sitting around. You want to have something locally that people are showing you this the size that they really love, that sells, right? You want to know that by going out and talking to the people. I'm telling you guys, I assumed that one size was going to be a winner, and I was wrong. Because when I went out into my city locally, I found out what most of the young and middle-aged men, how they really like to wear that silhouette. And it wasn't the size I thought. I thought large was that size, right? I was wrong, guys. I actually spoke to some people that were actually foreigners that said large. No, the local guys, they all said medium and small. They liked their silhouettes to be very tight. Even though online they're showing all oversized garments, here in my city, Baltimore, they don't go by what the online culture is. They go on their city, their native culture, right? Even though you might have some young kids that are doing that style, most of the guys, they were doing it. That's why it's important, guys, to go out and get direct feedback, right? You need to create a positive feedback loop with a large sample of your ideal customer profile in your city. Okay? All right, guys, I hope that this strategy was helpful to you guys. Please, guys, go out and take action with integrity. If you get the feedback, guys, and you only sell what the people want to buy versus what you want to sell, you will not lose. Go out there and get a large amount of feedback from your ideal customer profile, your ideal avatar, ideal customer in your hometown, guys. Grassroots is going to be what takes you there. So if you want to call it this is the grassroots loss leader social proof strategy. If you use this, guys, when you do the official national or international, however you're doing it, your drop, when you do that official drop, is going to explode, because people will trust you and see that you are a trustworthy brand, a real brand. And then you won't, like I said, you don't have to use language like pre-order. It's just say shop now, but simply be honest about your turnaround time. Make sure your turnaround time with how your logistical operations work, you have that printed on every page of the product page immediately in bold writing where they can easily find it on the homepage and all of that, guys. The reason why I said you want to have that transparency, because that adds an extra layer of trust. Because if they know that you're not a big brand starting out, it's what I call damaging admission. You can say statements like, look, we're not a big brand, and while our turnaround time may be slower than other brands, we prioritize on quality over quantity. You can do that. You get what I'm saying, guys? And they will trust you and feel more comfortable with supporting you when you're transparent in that way. I wanted to add that before I go. But yes, guys, this is the loss leader, the grassroots, I apologize, loss leader social proof strategy. It will absolutely help you explode, and you will get those pre-orders. That way you're not investing a lot of money on inventory ahead of time in terms of your apparel, t-shirts, hoodies, and all of that. You're not doing that. You're letting the customer tell you exactly what they want first. Start out by doing this grassroots locally, a large sample of your ideal customer. A large sample of those people. And what I do advise is this, guys, take some time to travel. with with the sample of what it is you're having, so people can kind of see it, and you can get that feedback across states, the states that you plan on marketing to, right? Because you'll have a large sample. Because like I said, in that one case in my hometown, they will like their silhouette different, even though there was a trend that was going across social media. In my hometown of Baltimore, that silhouette wasn't as popular as social media would have you believe it is, right? So you still might want to go out and talk to people and make sure that everybody is on one accord in terms of the silhouette that you're going to go with, right? Your core product offering. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful to you. Until next time, enjoy your weekend, guys.